Hey guys, Jeff back again. I'm going to do a video review of the Trippowin X Hawaii Bad Boy Olina. You can see it's kind of in the center of my frame here. I have it surrounded by a couple others that you may recognize. Got the Mele here, we got the Leia here, and then we have the Hertz Sound Heart Mirror here. I also supplied the Dunu EST112. I have the Shozi 1.4, and then the last one that I have, sorry, I need to get them off the cable here, are the Moondrop KATO. KATO. Let's see if I can get these to focus. Come on. Well, anyway, you can kind of see them there. Is it gonna focus? You gonna focus? There we go. So you can just kind of make it out. They're a little dirty. They were actually gifted to me by a friend of mine. Won't say who, but yeah. So they already were a little scratched up when I got them. So let's get into it. I have a couple graphs here on the side that I want to show you guys. One of them being the KATO, and the other one's going to be the HBB X Trippowin Olina. Now, a couple things I need to tell you. The price is $99. First 500 people got this beautiful little insert here, and basically it has a little palm tree, a little moon or sun. And it says, let's see, Mahalos, HBB, thank you for all the support, and I am number 118. And then on the back here, you have a little line of a song. And what Hawaii Bad Boy was trying to do is if you can match up a verse from one of the songs that he wrote on, or his wife wrote on one of 500 of these, if you and your friends can assemble that verse, you'll get, I believe it's a free upgrade cable. It's supposed to be like a really nice cable, and then a few of these have a golden ticket, and if you get a golden ticket, you get a free Olina. So let me move some of this stuff out of the way, and we'll get to the unboxing. Also, I have a bird on my shoulder, so you have to kind of bear with me. Box is pretty nice. It's a little understated. It's just got Trippowin X HBB Hawaii Bad Boy written all over it. Back's just plain. Says Trippowin, designed and manufactured by Trippowin, made in China. It says here something about them being a I don't know what that is. Apex CE specialist. Not sure who that is, but apparently they're in Ireland. So I don't know if that's just like the box manufacturer, or I don't know. I'm not sure who that is. So, Olina, let's get into it. So you got a sleeve here. It's actually a pretty big box too. For $100, I'm definitely happy with the presentation. So there's the box, just a plain box. Folds open. Sorry, I got bird feathers going everywhere. So there is the box with the IEMs. Let me try to zoom in on them. So you can see they're kind of like a cloudy, wispy looking texture to them. Pretty much the same build as the Mele. So the shells are super sturdy. And take those out. I'll take the case out here too. What? What are you doing? Alright. So there's the Olina. We got a case here. It says Trippowin on the case. It's a nice little case. A little leather case. Inside you have your IEM cable. So there's your IEM cable, 3.5 millimeter. It's a cheap cable. It's not you know, it's not a bad cable. It's just not like a super fancy cable. So there's your cable there. It comes with, I believe, like 6 or 7 ear tips. So you can see here, there's a couple that are like narrow bore, and then you have a few wide bore here. I believe there's like 4 of each, so it's like 8 tips. I found that the biggest ones, or the big ones, fit my ears the best. All the rest of them, just toss them in the trash. I don't. And with this set, you want to use the wide bores too. You don't want to use any of these narrow tips because they don't give you the correct sound. It gets kind of compressed if you use narrow bore tips. You don't get the most out of the imaging and the treble too. So this fucking bird is gonna drive me nuts. Come on, you fucker, stop it. So there's the case. Nice case. Cable. Nice cable. IEMs themselves. Let's see if I can zoom in on here. There we go. Oh, they're pretty. They're nice shells. They're anodized aluminum. They have the Hawaii Bad Boy logo on them. And also, I forgot to mention, in the box you get, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 5 sets of filters. So, I will talk about that in a little bit, because I've actually had some issues with the filters. So, IEMs themselves, let's compare the shells to the Mele's. So, face of the shell is pretty much the same. 2-pin connectors the same. Where they differ is in the nozzle, and I will try to show you this. So this is the Mele, and you can see that the Olina takes kind of a different angle. I guess maybe it's the same angle, but it's just a little bit different. Like this edge is rounded right here, and it's kind of recessed on this unit here, and then the side kind of protrudes a little more. Meanwhile, the Olina is kind of straight on this edge, so it doesn't take as much of a zigzag. And then here are the filters. Now this is actually, these are actually the Tanshijim filters. I'm not using the Olina filters, and the reason why is because I had some issues with moisture buildup. So basically, your ears, when they, it's not really sweat, but what happens is your earwax leaks from your ears, and it's a liquid when it comes out, because it's wax. So it'll creep along the inside of the ear tip, and it'll creep all the way up to this filter here. And then what happens is, you'll notice the filter will have like a black ring around it, and the sound will slowly get quieter and quieter, and the treble will become non-existent until finally the whole filter is saturated, and you'll just get no more sound because the water is blocking the sound. So I had a constant issue with that in the left ear. The right one, not so much. I'm guessing it's just the shape of my ears. They kind of sit like this, so I don't know if it's the fact that the liquid just kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah. So I had issues with it. I bought a set of Tanshijim filters here, and these you can actually see. Let's see if I can compare them, because you can see through it. Alright, so those are the Trippowin HBB filters, and then these are the Tanshijim filters. And you can see they're a little bit clearer, so the weave pattern is not as dense as on the Trippowin, and then the adhesive is also a little bit wider. They're the same size filter, but they're a little bit different, and I just wanted to try it to see, just a little experiment, and it worked. So no more moisture issues. So if you get your pair and you have moisture issues, best thing to do is to try to pick up a pair of these, or if you want, you can remove the filters entirely, but the problem is they do affect the tuning. So if you remove the filters, they might become a little too bright for you, they might ring a little bit. Basically, it's not the intended sound. So just keep that in mind. If you do remove the filters, you know, it might not sound good to your ears. Let's see. All right, so sound, preferences, comparisons. What does $100 get you? What did $100 get you? Unfortunately, I don't own many single dynamic IEMs. It's just not my thing. I'm more into like hybrids. You can see like these are 10BA plus 4 EST. Oh, there she goes. Look at her go. Yeah, so basically a whole lot of drivers. That's my kind of tea. Not really into the whole single dynamic. Although recently I've been getting more and more into it, and I actually like it. What are you doing? Look at this bird. This is what I have to deal with. Alright. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Get on my shoulder. Okay. Anyway. Sorry about the interruption. So, single DD. Benefits to single DD. They're more cohesive. It just sounds more linear. There's not differences in timbre. When you listen to a hybrid, there'll be differences in timbre. So like the bass, if it's handled, shut up, by a dynamic, it'll sound different from a BA, which will have, BA timbre, kind of like a plasticky type of sound, or like metallic kind of sound sometimes. And then like EST has its own kind of timbre. So single dynamics sound the same throughout the frequency range. They don't sound any different. They don't change. The texture, timbre, everything's the same all throughout the range. So that's one of the benefits to dynamic. What are the weaknesses? Weaknesses are it can't handle as many frequencies playing at the same time. Sometimes you have music with complicated pieces, so it'll have a lot of information going on. Especially if you're listening to like orchestral, or you're listening to like metal, jazz, something that's really busy. If it's a really busy track, a lot of times the drivers won't be able to keep up, and they'll kind of break down a little bit. So you'll have issues with masking. You'll have issues with like incoherency, or not incoherency. Masking's one of them. Trying to think what else you got. Distortion. So distortion's a big one, because the way a single driver works is your higher frequencies ride on top of your lower frequencies. So if you have a wave that's doing this, you have smaller frequencies that are doing this and riding on top of that wave. And especially at louder volumes, those tend to break up. The driver just can't move fast enough to achieve all those frequencies at the same time. So if you break them up, you split them up, and you have different drivers handling different tasks, they end up doing a better job, because you're not leaving it up to one driver. So the benefit to a single DD is it's more coherent, it's more linear sounding throughout the range. There's no difference in timbre. Pretty much sounds the same throughout the frequency range. And then the disadvantage to a single DD is the fact that sometimes they have a tendency of breaking up, or you'll get distortions when you have busy, complex passages in songs. Alright, so let's see. History of driver technology. There's a few different driver technologies. First you have the PET Mylar, which is just a cheap bargain basement kind of driver. Then you have CNT, which is carbon nanotube. You have DLC, which is diamond light carbon, which is like a compressed carbon, I guess. You have, what is it, the LCP, which is liquid crystal polymer, so it's like a rubber, or like a liquid material, like a liquid plastic that they use, plasticizer, that basically makes the driver rigid. And what's the whole task of that? Basically, they're trying to make the driver stiffer, or control the suspension of the driver. Because if you can control the suspension of the driver, you can help it more accurately create those waves that ride on top of other waves, and you avoid things like overshoot, where your driver, when it's trying to do so many movements in one period of time, sometimes it can overshoot, and that causes distortions because it's not meant to travel as far as it is. So that little tidbit being said, KATO. These are $169. I really like them. I think they're really good for the money, but the Olina totally blows them out of the water. So these things for $100 manage to do something that the come on, I'm trying to get it to focus, that the KATO could never dream of doing, and that is sheer resolution. These things have buckets of resolution, tons of resolution, more than I've ever heard in any IEM. The imaging, the layering, the technical performance, all of it is just like off the charts. They're not the widest IEMs that I've heard. I think that the KATO is actually a little bit wider, but as far as the depth, so like from front to back, the layering of instruments within the 3D space is way, way better. It's much more easily perceived. So like if you have a singer here dead center, and then you have the drummer behind him, you can actually hear the space of the drum kit, and exactly where it is positionally wise, relative to 3D space. Like the bassist, guitarist, all that stuff seems much more accurate, true to life, or true to recording, than these could ever hope to be. Tuning, what does it sound like? To my ears, and just remember, this is a subjective hobby. Everybody is different. They have good amount of sub-bass emphasis. They really kick ass in the bass department when it comes to rumble, low-end rumble. Mid-bass presence is not so much that I can hear personally. I'll leave it up to other people to tell you if they hear it or not. But the state of the replay is like super clean, super clean replay. So sub bass is emphasized, mid bass is a little bit lean, mids are just right up to the peak of intensity for me, which is strange because I'll show you something that shows up in the graph that I don't hear personally between these and the KATO, and the reason why these are a good comparison to each other. Let's see, so the mids are excellent. I wouldn't call them super smooth per se, but they are accurate. They're extremely accurate. These almost have the quality of like a planar driver. I don't know if you've ever heard of planar before. It has a certain timbre to it, a certain speed, and it gives it a certain texture because of how fast the driver is. The attack, the sustain, the decay, the release, like all that is just super tight. These kind of have that detail to them, especially in the mids. So if you have someone who's speaking and they have a good amount of vocal fry, like you can really hear it. Textures, anything that has texture in the mids stands out extremely. Let's see. Vocalists, between male and female, it's a toss-up to me. They're both about as good. The mids are rich, they're full. Upper mids, they're not too bright. They're not dark. They're definitely leaning bright. They're a brighter set, and again, you'll see what I mean when I show you compared to the KATO. So they're a little bit on the bright leaning side. The peanut gain, like I said, is just right at that level, right at the peak for me, right before it gets shouty. So there's no shout, there's no, what do you call it? There's no honkiness to it. The mids are like really clean. There's a little bit of scoop there at the lower mids, so it's not honky or anything like that. Upper mids are clear, detailed, super vibrant. Like I said, resolution is like top notch on these. Treble detail is great. There's no sibilance. There's no harshness to them. They are a little bit on the aggressive side, and the only reason why I say they're a little bit aggressive is because of the timbre of the drivers, because these drivers are so fast that they are super, super rich in texture, which lends towards their technicalities and their resolving ability. And when you hear that, for some people, I can see it being a little bit fatiguing. For me, it's not. In fact, the longer I listen to them, the more I like the textural quality of them. As far as the smoothness of replay goes, the KATO is definitely smoother, but in terms of technicality, there's no comparison. The Olina just stomps all over the KATO. KATO has nowhere close the resolving ability as the Olina. Now, I will say, though, as far as being musically pleasing, at least for my specific library, I prefer the KATO. I think it sounds a little bit more musical. I think it sounds a little bit more appealing. I like the tuning of the KATO more, but as far as its technical abilities, they just pale in comparison to the Olina. So width, height, depth, layering, macro details, micro details, the quality of bass replay, quality of mids, textural qualities, transients, all that stuff is just amazing on these. Really, for $100, you're getting flagship level performance for $100. I mean, they're really, really that good. These things, in my opinion, and I've heard a lot of IEMs. I've heard the Mest, I've heard the SA6, I've heard the Variations, I've heard the Clairvoyance, I've heard the Blessing 2, the Blessing 2 Dusk, I've heard the Yume. I mean, dude, I've heard like almost. It's got to be close to like 100 IEMs, not including the ones that I've made myself, all the little hybrids and stuff that I played around with. I mean, shoot, I have a $1,300 Noble Tux IEM right here, and then I have a $2,000 prototype from a company that I cannot say, but yeah, this is a $2,000 prototype with 10 BAs and 4 ESTs. So I've heard a lot. Not as much as other people, but I can tell you for a fact, these things stomp all over most of the IEMs that I've heard. There are little things here and there that I prefer with other IEMs, whether it be, a texture kind of thing, or attack, slam, decay, the pulls, the releases with certain notes, the tuning, how smooth it is. There are certain things that I prefer more with other IEMs. But as far as strict bang for buck, detail, resolving ability, like I said, imaging, everything has... These have a very good spatial quality to them. I mean, you can hear the placement of everything. Like, you can hear a pin drop in an orchestra on these. It's crazy. It's nuts. They're like laser beams into your ears, or like an X-ray inside your brain, inside your skull cavity. So So the reason why I brought a couple of these out is I just wanted to explain the difference between them. So the Shozi 112, the Shozi 1.4, these are good IEMs, but they have issues with timbre. These, not so much. These have a weird BA timbre, it's kind of gritty. When I first got these out of the box, I said they sounded a little bit gritty, but no, it's not. It's just their resolving ability is so high that they just come off that way. They're not gritty. They're not harsh. Nothing like that. It's not like BA timbre. It's not. It's just pure resolving ability. So, which is something that I wasn't accustomed to. You know, even hearing the Mest and certain IEMs like that. The micro details on these things are just fucking far superior over most IEMs I've heard. The Duno EST 112, the reason why I brought these out is they have no extension. They do have good resolving ability. The mids are very detailed. There are macro details. But again, $500 IEM pales in comparison to these. The extension, everything, just these kill them. The KATO, I prefer the tuning. I still think the tuning's better. I like the width, and I like the detail and sparkle. But after you hear these and you go to these, you're missing so much information in the song. There's so much more stuff that I hear with the Olina than I do with the KATO. The Mele, these things are more musical, but just, yeah. Me, sorry. Really what Hawaii Bad Boy did here is very, very special. I mean, for $100, getting this level of satisfaction, this level of replay, the level of detail, level of resolution for this price is just unheard of. And I know people are going to ask, you know, does it sound like the Oxygen? Does it sound like the O2? From all accounts I've heard, people say no, it doesn't. It's supposedly the same driver, but it is not the same sounding. From what I've heard, the Oxygen is a little bit smoother in its replay, but I haven't heard any comparisons in terms of resolution, dynamics, punch, slam, imaging, anything like that. So I'll be keeping an eye out, you know, for some people's opinions and hear what they have to say, because I'm quite curious how these stack up to the Oxygens. As far as the fit goes, I'll just tell you right now, the fit's great. These nozzles are really, really short and really, really stubby. Come on. Sorry, let me get this in focus. Okay, this is from base to tip is 2.5 millimeters, and the width is 5. If you include the lip, it's like 5.2. So these are really, really chonky, really, really shallow tips. What I'm using right now are the reverse star lines, because they just rock. They're still wide enough that they allow maximum sound through. They actually, to my ears, they sound, the replay sounds smoother with these than it does with, say, like a CP100. These just, I don't know, they sound a little bit more aggressive. So far, the reverse star lines have been the smoothest replay I've heard. Also, they prop the drivers further away from your ears, so you get a bigger sense of imaging, a bigger sense of stage. Separation is better, but you do suffer with a little bit of tuning. You don't get as much mid-bass. So they're not as full sounding, but that's fine for me. I'm not a big fan of mid-bass anyway. I like sub-bass, you know, just enough emphasis in the mids to give me a little bit of that slam, a little bit of that punch, and then I want my mids to continue on. I don't want any bloat or anything like that. These don't have it to begin with, but I'm just not a big fan of mid-bass. It doesn't suit my library well. I listen to a lot of EDM. My library is like way different than Hawaii Bad Boys. The Heart Mirror. What do they have in common? Not much. Tuning similar. These are a little bit on the bright side, but their detail ability, their resolving ability, still, again, can't hold a candle to them. Their musicality is probably a little bit better, but like I said, everything else just pales in comparison. These are like X-rays for your ears. These are like, you know, if you were to put a pillowcase over your head and then put earbuds in, or, you know, put a comforter over your head and then put earphones in. Like, there's no comparison. These just beam the music directly into your ears, and the Heart Mirror more or less has the details. It doesn't have the resolution, and it doesn't have the micro details and all that these do. So, and then the Leias, the only reason why I brought these out is because I kind of like them, and they're a little bit flat, but yeah, they can't hold a candle anywhere close. I mean, none of my IEMs that I have here, and I have over 50 or so, can't hold a candle to the Olina. I mean, what you get alone, so for $100, okay, let's just imagine this. Back in the day, 2 years ago, these would have been $500. No joke. These would have absolutely been at least like $500. And for $100, you get, shut up. For $100, you get the IEMs. You get a cable. Granted, it's not a good cable, but it's a cable. And it's not a bad cable. It's just a cheap cable. You need for these IEMs, you really need a better cable. So let me just put it out there. It's not a bad cable, but it's not a good cable. It's just a cheap cable. But yeah, for $100, they give you a fucking cable. Like, you wouldn't, for this level of detail, you wouldn't even get a cable for $100. You'd get half an IEM. You wouldn't even get one. You'd get just half. So you get 2 IEMs. You get 8 tips. You get a cable. And you get a cool case. And you get filters. Like, how cool is that? And if you're the first 500, you get this cool card that's handwritten, hand-signed. Got some text on the back. And you could also win an upgrade cable. That's awesome, man. That's, like, so cool. He really went all out with this. And I can respect that. I know not a lot of people are fans of Bad Guy. You know, some people find him abrasive. Some people think, you know, he can rub them the wrong way. But I think he fucking knocked it out of the park, man. Like, this has been a winner in the making for so many years now. Started with the oxygen, started with that driver, people heard the driver, and then someone else like me, you know, someone who tears these IEMs apart. I don't just tear them apart for fun. I tear them apart to learn from them. And that's exactly what he did. Took them apart, found out what made them tick, found the driver that is inside, you know, that supplies all that detail and makes the sweet, awesome sound. And he went to a manufacturer that had an IEM shell that's amazing quality, but didn't have a good driver to put in it, and freaking made it happen. So, alright, let's go on to graphs. I'm just going to take you guys off the stand here. And I'm going to move over and I'm going to show you the graphs here. The red line is the Olina, and the green line is the KATO. So you can see here, and this is the reason why... Hey, fucker. Sorry, 1 second. I gotta deal with the bird. Be right back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, I had to take care of the bird. So, red line is Olina, green line is KATO. You can see the bass in the Olina is a little bit elevated compared to the KATO, especially in the sub-bass region. When it comes to the lower mids, they're identical. And in the mid-range region, right before 1K, same thing, they're identical. So the replay is kind of similar in that sense. The tuning is similar in that sense. And then once you start getting into the mid-range is where things start to change. So the green line, again, is the KATO, and the red line is the Olina. So the KATO starts a little bit earlier, and I think that's what gives it its more musicality, is it has a little bit more emphasis in the 1 to 2K region. And then I think that's what makes the Olina a little bit more analytical, is this how the peaks are shifted. So it goes from the KATO being more boosted in the lower mid region, where there's a little bit more musical information and there's a little bit more body, and then the the Olina takes over at about the halfway point, which is 3K, and that's what gives it its more analytical side. When you get towards the coupler resonance here at about 8K, they're both pretty much the same, and then once you get past 10K, you'll see the Olina kind of dips off a little bit and then comes back strong at about 13K, 14K, more so than the Olina. Now this information right here can't really be trusted. I trust my coupler just because I use it on a daily basis, but as you can see here, they do have a little bit in comparison as far as raw graphs go, but other than that, everything's different. What I hear, so what do I hear? I do hear the strong sub-bass emphasis in the Olina. I do hear kind of the curved out mids a little bit, and I do hear this peak right here that's shifted slightly, which, like I said, it just right on the point of, right on the limit of my Pina gain, right there. For some reason, it sounds a lot hotter in the mids than the KATO does, even though they're like neck and neck. Then the other thing would be, it could have to do with like sensitivity too. I'm not sure. Let's see, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, so right here, so this dip. So you see how it's like 9 kilohertz. 9 kilohertz is the peak, and then it comes down pretty hard on the Olina. I can't hear that. This thing, the Olina does not lack in details. It does not lack in extension. So whatever you see here, like I said, it's not. I can kind of trust what I'm seeing just because I see it on a daily basis. I use this coupler constantly, and I know its limitations. But yeah, so this graph right here, like I said, it's got plenty of extension, and maybe it's because the secondary peak is so high. But yeah, all this right here, you can hear all of it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And then after that, you can see it kind of drops off a little bit, but still stays around the same point as the KATO. So they're kind of like neck and neck as far as their upper treble energy goes. But this peak right here gives the Olina way more energy. Not to mention it's way more detailed. Let's see if I can show you a little bit more information. See, we got the clarity graph here. I'm not sure what half of these are, but I guess that's like perceived clarity between the two. I don't know. Do you know how to read this? And graphs are only like a little teeny little baby bit of the information. So this is like a resonance graph, waterfall, whatever you want to call it. You can see there's some resonance towards the base and a little bit in the mid region, but it sounds great to me, man. Spectrogram. I don't know how to read that. That's weird, but anywho, moving on. For $100, let me just adjust this camera. For $100, the Olina is a real killer. You can't do any better than it. It's honestly one of the best IEMs that I've heard, and at $100, honestly, I don't think you can beat it. These things are going to sell like hotcakes. People are already talking about how much they love them, and with good reason. It's one of the highest resolving IEMs I've ever heard. One of the best, most detailed IEMs I've ever heard. Bass control quantity is good. Probably not the tightest bass or like the most well-rounded bottom bass. Like the attack and the decay aren't quite to my liking, but it's really, really good. You'll definitely hear all the macro details for sure, and you'll hear everything. So that's my opinion of it. I just want to let you guys know Hawaii Bad Boy knocked it out of the park. Yeah, these things are going to be like the #1 de facto recommend to anyone who has $100 who wants to buy the best IEM that they could possibly buy. And a lot of other manufacturers are going to have a really, really hard time keeping up in sales, because once you hear these, you're going to be like, dude, why do I want to spend $500 on an IEM when I have these for $100, you know? And they take those $500 ones to task as far as resolution goes. So, Ava, you want to say goodbye? You want to say goodbye? I'll bring the bird out so she can say goodbye to you guys. Ava, say goodbye. Say goodbye. You want to say goodbye to Hawaii Bad Boy? Huh? You say, I like to interrupt all of Jeff's videos. That's why he can only film at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. No, don't go that way. Alright, come on. Alright, guys. With that, I'll talk to you later. See ya.